I found a new revelation and satisfaction and support and help in my relationship with Jesus, where it was that he was not only making me whole, but he was the center of my life that could make other things whole in my life, where I could find joy in motherhood again and joy and contentment and being a stage of life where I didn't have all the things that I wanted to have.
Hey there, you're listening to the Girls Talking Life podcast, and I'm your host, Johanna. If you're like me, you love time with friends. I always leave feeling encouraged, inspired to try something different, or I've learned something new. So why not continue to grow even when we can't be with our girlfriends? We're not made to do life on our own. So in each episode of this show, I'll bring you a girl and her story to give you refreshing ideas to stir your soul. Let's walk this road together. Are you ready to talk life? Hey friend, welcome to the show. I am so honored that you chose to listen in. You may have heard me talk about the Girls Talking Life conversation cards. I made the first set so many years ago for a girls' night I was having at my house. Not everyone knew each other, and I wanted a fun way to connect the women in conversation. These conversation cards have come a long way, and now they are available in the Girls Talking Life shop. You can choose from professionally printed mat cards with a cotton bag for storage, or a digital download that you can print and cut at home. They have curated questions and prompts to help you take your conversations to the next level. Go to girlstalkinglife.com/shop to grab a set so you can get talking. Amy Wicks is joining me today for a super fun chat about friendship and the Enneagram. Amy shares a little of her own story and then walks us through each type, coaching us on our strengths in friendship, giving a glimpse into a fear or a weakness, and sharing tips on how we can best befriend each Enneagram type. Amy loves Jesus and believes that he is the Prince of Wholeness for everyone. She is a California-born turned Colorado mountain girl, but somehow ended up in a cul-de-sac in the Midwest, spending her days coaching incredible women who desire to thrive in their faith, family, and business. She is also the host of the Simply Wholehearted Podcast, with weekly episodes since 2017. Everything Amy and I talk about can be found in the show notes for today's episode on girlstalkinglife.com. Here is our conversation. Amy, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely, Johanna. I am really thrilled to be here and to get to talk with you today.
I would love for you to introduce yourself and kind of let my audience know what you are all about.
Well, I always have a hard time with this question because where do I begin? What do I share? But I'll start here that I am a beloved child of God who happens to be an Enneagram 7, wing 8. And I'm sure we're going to talk more about that today. But I'm married to my husband for now 17 years. Can't believe it. We have 3 kids who are now pretty much 3 teenagers, and they are all in the assertive stance. So we need extra prayer. Mm-hmm. And, but I am an certified, it's important to say this, certified Enneagram life coach for female entrepreneurs and their families. And so I do that all day, whether it's creating a podcast or coaching someone one-on-one or speaking to groups of women. That is what I get to do, and creating fun stuff for the social media, conversation, because that's where it oftentimes begins for people. So that's a little bit about who I am and what I do.
Excellent. Thank you. So you have a podcast, like you mentioned, called Simply Wholehearted. And part of your story has to do with a brokenhearted moment that led to a wholehearted decision. Do I have that right?
Yes, you got it.
Would you just share a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is where I was always trying to think through this concept of wholeheartedness. What does wholeheartedness look like? And you know what? The world, I say the world, quote unquote, in the idea of those who don't have a biblical worldview, has co-opted that term a little bit. And wholehearted can sometimes be likened to pulling yourself up by the bootstraps and positive mantras and good thinking and manifestations and all that sort of stuff. And that is the world's term to something that really just boils down to, what does wholeheartedness look like in Christ? How does Christ make us wholehearted? Often, though, our experience is that we have a brokenhearted moment. Maybe we have a lot of brokenhearted moments. And the invitation, as I see it, is that as we explore our stories or share our stories, what does that brokenhearted moment lead to? Well, if we are inviting the Lord into those hard places, those low valleys, and we see how he's been walking with us, then we can see how he has transformed those to a wholehearted decision to write a book or start a podcast or start coaching. So for me, I've had a lot of brokenhearted moments through the years. It's been sadly sexual abuse and trauma, even abuse in the church and from church leadership. I've also had brokenhearted moments where relationships didn't turn out, friendships that I thought would be forever. It didn't happen that way, or lost pregnancies, or kids with diagnosis about things that I can do nothing about. But one of the pieces that propelled what I do now that I call Simply Wholehearted, or sometimes people see me as Wholehearted Enneagram, was this idea that becoming a mom was absolutely something that I wanted to do, but it was one of the hardest things that I had ever done. And I hit this moment where I had 3 kids, 3 and under. We were in a city and a place that I had no family. I had no community and access to where I felt like an easy access to one because of the 3 little kids. But it was that brokenhearted moment in that stage of life, that really chapter of my life, that created new intimacy and depth with the Lord, where suddenly I had all the external things that maybe propped me up. And I had loved the Lord and even given a lot of years of ministry to him. But this entry into motherhood and the place where I was at just stripped me kind of everything else and all my coping mechanisms. And I found a new revelation and satisfaction and support and help in my relationship with Jesus, where it was that he was not only making me whole, but he was the center of my life that could make other things whole in my life, where I could find joy in motherhood again and joy and contentment in being a stage of life where I didn't have all the things that I wanted to have to prop me up, if you will. So there you go. There's kind of a picture and a glimpse into mine. And I love that you asked that question because it's not oftentimes I get to share the answers to that one.
You did. How did that then translate into you talking about the Enneagram?
Over time, I began to get involved again with whether it was ministries or just one-on-one discipleship, which was something I always naturally did, either because I was a pastor's kid or just because that's how I was wired. And I just found myself constantly sitting across the table or running next to or at play dates with women who were looking for encouragement, advice, and direction. And time again, I would run into this question of like, well, that advice might work for you, or that's a really good idea and that might work for you, but I'm not sure if it works for me. I don't know if, maybe I just wasn't meant to be a mom. Maybe I'm not cut out to have that wholehearted relationship with the Lord, discounting themselves along the way. And so while I had always been a typology, personality junkie, nerd, whatever you want to call it, I had heard about the Enneagram here and there. And then when I started diving into it before even my training, I thought, whoa, I think this could be really helpful. And I started exploring it for myself, and I began to have revelation of, oh, that's why my marriage looks this way. This is why my personality is different from my husband's personality, and why our dynamic is different from my friends' marriages. And then, oh, this is why I mother the way I do, or parent the way I do, or why I approach my relationship with Jesus the way I do. All these different things began to click in place for me. And as I started sharing this with my friends, like, have you guys heard of the Enneagram? Do you know what type you are? Here's this book and blah, blah, blah. We began to have fruitful conversations where suddenly I understood the perspective that they were coming from. And I knew it was different than mine. And I intuitively began to go, because of what I knew about them, we're kind of able to be like, well, well, maybe this is why this is hard for you, or this is why you love this, or this is why you're not connecting in your role or your marriage or whatever. So this quickly planted the seed. A few conversations like that happened where I thought, maybe I should talk to Beth McCord about certification and coaching. And it was this really neat moment where Beth was ministry in her organization, and it's Your Enneagram Coach. If our friends are familiar with that Instagram and website and everything, they probably are. But she became a guest on the podcast, and she's so down to earth and wonderful. And I did kind of say, hey, I'm kind of thinking about, like, do you do training? And she was just going to start launching her new coaching training that winter. We had talked in November, December like that. And she's like, well, check back in with me in February because I might have something for you. So that was 2018 when I began my coaching certification. And really the rest is history. I began to share my coaching training process and journey through my podcast and different insights, and formulated my own program. And the Lord has just continued to shift and redirect me. And I'm so, so grateful that I have this tool now that really is empowering women who have a dream for business, have a dream for ministry, and they're also moms. And how does that work together? How can they have relationships that thrive while building something that thrives simultaneously? So anyway, that's a little snippet. And I'm so grateful that I get to do what I do.
It is such a powerful tool. And when you start to understand it and understand yourself, and then, like you were saying, why people might be doing what they're doing, it's incredibly powerful and helpful.
Yes. Yeah. Because suddenly it's not just what they do, it's why they're doing what they do.
Yes. So we understand who we are, why we do what we do. And then it's also for growth and transformation for ourselves and then in our relationships. So for our conversation today, Amy and I are going to assume that you know at least a little bit about the Enneagram. And if you don't, maybe this is a great place to stop. And I will link to, I have a past episode, and Amy has a bunch of resources on her website. You can just dig into the basics of what this is if you're not sure right now.
Yeah, totally. Do it before you dive in, because it's going to be a meaty conversation.
And Amy, Girls Talking Life is all about being in community with other women. We want to have deep and meaningful connections. And I believe the Enneagram is a really good tool to help us with this. Mm-hmm. So I would love for you to walk us through each type and give us a little coaching on how we might be, how might we operate in friendships, and then how we can best relate to our friends if we know their number or if we kind of suspect what their number might be.
Yeah. How I love to approach the Enneagram is, let's use this as a resource to celebrate our strengths and to have insight about our weaknesses, because this is where the self-awareness can empower us to some self-discipline, things that we need to change, or as you talk about, you use the word transformation. And so how I'm going to talk about this is we're going to talk about each Enneagram type. It'll be brief, and that's why we encourage you to listen to some other resources if you don't have an idea. I'm going to talk about the strength, what they are offering in friendship that I think is incredibly valuable. And then maybe how the sneaky fears and how the enemy might cause you to get stuck in creating healthy friendships. And then the third thing that I want to talk about is the friend tip. And so I want you to listen to each type. I don't want you to just tune out until we talk about your type, because I'm going to give you a tip to listen to. And if you know you have an Enneagram 1 friend, you're going to get a friend tip. And you're going to get to see how can you encourage your Enneagram 1 friend. And maybe you don't know their Enneagram type. That's okay. Listen to these different tips and ideas that just will create maybe a little bit more intentionality as you engage in community and friendships, because I know you all are talking about this a lot. Friendship can be messy and hard and challenging. So we all need the help we can get, right?
Yes, so much. And chances are, even if you don't know it, you probably have a friend in each category.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Yep. You may have not identified it yet, or they may not know yet, but this might be a really fun conversation to share with your friends. If they haven't begun their Enneagram journey, this is this is a great place to begin because of all the resources we'll link to, and that they'll want to come back to this conversation to understand friendship with you better.
Very good.
So my question, Johanna, for you, I love to start the conversation with my Enneagram guest type. So I don't know what your type is yet. I have been wondering as we're talking, and I have some guesses. So now I got to know, and we'll start with your type.
Okay. Well, I am a 9.
Awesome. You kind of had the 9 vibes. I was thinking.
I also have a 1 wing, and I'm thinking an 8 wing might be maybe in the works.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yes. Well, I like to say, and this is a little bit of Enneagram 201, wings are always, there on the number on each side of us of our dominant type. And the goal is to use both of them. So we stop flying in circles. We want to get out of our loops.
That is a fantastic way to describe it. Thank you.
Yeah. And Johanna, I love Enneagram 9s because I'm married to a 9, and he also happens to have a 1 wing. And I think it's very sexy when he starts using his 8 wing. So I always am encouraging it. Okay. So for the Enneagram 9, your strength in friendship is that you're incredibly supportive, you're patient, and you're a great listener. Who doesn't want to have a great listener and a friend? But your weakness is you might hold back because of your fear that others may not value what you have to offer. So our Enneagram 9 friends, we want you to show up. You have so much to offer. Don't hold back. And here's my friend tip. If you love an Enneagram 9 or are friends with them, please encourage your friend to share their opinion. And then when they share it, even if it's, where do you want to go for coffee? Don't try to talk them out of it or share other ideas. Just go do it. Am I right, Johanna?
Yep. You hit that directly on the head.
I'm glad I can help. Well, what we're going to do today, we started at the 9. And if you know the Enneagram diagram, the 9 is at the very top of the circle. And today we're going to go backwards from that. So we're going to go counterclockwise. Next, we're going to go 8, and then 7, 6, 5. And the last one, you 1s are patient as well. So we'll get to you, I promise. All right. For the Enneagram 8, the strength in friendship that you offer is that you are a decisive leader. You are a straight shooter, and you're a champion of your cause. Oftentimes, you're a champion of your friends' causes, which is so great. I have many really dear Enneagram 8 friends, and it's so fun to see them in action when they're passionate about something. But friends who are 8s, your fear is being out of control or not having trustworthy friends. That fear of betrayal can really get in the way of vulnerability. But here's our friend tip. So if you love an Enneagram 8 or friends with them, I encourage you to encourage them to take time to share their emotions and feelings. It takes vulnerability, but invite them into it, and you'll be amazed about really the connection that you're going to get from a fellow 8 when they have that moment to share. All right, the Enneagram 7. This is me, fellow 7s out there. Your strength that you offer in friendship is that you are resilient. You really bounce back. You're good at reframing negative things. You're joyous and you're spontaneous. But the weakness that you might have is that you could approach relationships almost with your fear of commitment, or that it's not going to make you happy, or that it might even limit your options. So, time to shake that off and dive in wholeheartedly to your friendships, and how you can, if you love an Enneagram 7 or in a friendship with them, it really means a lot to your 7 friends when you listen to their wild ideas and you're willing to plan fun things or be spontaneous as well. It's not always easy for everyone.
I love that about my 7 friends.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're good at that. Hey, you want to go to coffee? Heck yeah, let's drop the responsibilities and go. Okay, our Enneagram 6 friends, your strength is loyalty. You are trustworthy and you are committed to friendships. A little bit opposite of those 7. Sometimes you can be flighty, but when you're in, you are all in. But the fear that you might be struggling with that creates some weakness in engaging with friendship is that you might wonder if this relationship is really going to give you the support that you desire or the guidance that you think you need. So the friend tip here is, if you love an Enneagram 6 or are good friends with them, I would say that encourage your 6 friends to, instead planning for the worst case scenario, plan for the best case scenario. And then if you can, give them as much loyalty as they offer to you. So just offer back what they're giving, that intentionality and commitment. The Enneagram 5, your strength and what you have to offer to friendship is that you actually are visionary and you love to offer your expertise and your knowledge. And maybe it's in a lot of areas, maybe it's one, but you have something incredibly valuable to share in that. And you're very insightful. Part of that is that you tend to take a step back and observe. But the weakness, and this is where it comes in, like that natural instinct is to observe and maybe hold yourself back. But the weakness is that you might fear that you don't have enough energy or that you'll be found lacking as you engage in friendship. But that just isn't so. You have enough. People want what you have to offer. So don't hold back. Now, if you're friends with an Enneagram 5, this is really important to know because sometimes inadvertently, Enneagram 5s have offended other types because this isn't understood. Enneagram 5 might say no to fun things more often than they say yes to, or say no to coming out because they'd rather stay in because they're afraid about the energy that they have. Will they have enough to engage in this situation? But don't dismiss your Enneagram 5 friends. Keep inviting them, even if they say no. Just have some patience with them that in time they will come. I know I'm a lot of times coaching Enneagram 5 people to take that step out of their comfort zone, go hang out more than you think you need because it ends up being energizing. And they also, Enneagram 5s are really comfortable in silence. And so if there's an activity to just do together that even makes the silence more comfortable, do it. They're like the perfect people for that. So we love you 5s.
Husband. Yeah. That's very insightful. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I hope this is helpful because that can be challenging sometimes when we think, is it me?
Right.
Nope. It's them.
Keep encouraging those 5s. Okay.
Yes. Keep asking them, keep inviting them. They do really want to be asked. They just are a little afraid to say yes. Okay. Our Enneagram 4 friends, oh, you have so much empathy. It's such a gift. You're intuitive, and you Enneagram 4 people, you are so good at noticing the details. It is a gift to the rest of us. But the fear is, this is a coaching pain point that we come back to again and again, and is that they fear that they do not belong or they aren't significant enough. That fear of not belonging runs so deep for a 4. And so the reminder is that you are welcome, that you belong, and that there are people and friendships where your mess is as welcome as the goodness. And that's just part of what makes you you and gives you the unique thing that only you can offer. So my friend tip for those who are friends with the 4 is, and I have to tell myself this often, is that don't rush to cheer them up because 4s are okay and need to sit in their sadness and melancholy a little bit. It's not bad to encourage them to get out of it at a point in time, but allow them to be there. Don't rush to cheer them out, and then pay attention to the mundane details of their life. It goes a long way if you remember that little thing that they love or the thing that's coming up that they were worried about or nervous about or thinking about. And if you remember to go back to them like, hey, by the way, how did that conversation go? Or how was that experience? Or did you get an answer to that? That just means so much to them when you pay as much attention to the details as they are paying attention to yours.
That's helpful.
I love my Enneagram 4 friends. They help me feel my emotions in ways that I didn't know was possible. They just have like that right phrase that is like, yes, you're right. And I'm so glad because I needed to cry. I needed to get it out. They name the pain sometimes for me. Okay. So our Enneagram 3 are successful achievers. Their strength is that they are adaptable. They can pivot quickly, and they don't mind going along with what you love to do. They really love championing your goals and ambitions. But the fear that they struggle with, especially in engaging in deep relationships, is that it could be a waste of time or maybe even an inefficient use of their time. This is because they have this deep underlying drive for success, which isn't bad. Is the drive, though, inhibiting important relationships because it's the invitation of people over performance. So much easier said than done. But the truth is, a lot of times, some of the best time spent is wasting time with people you love and building those friendships and having those rich conversations. So if you are a friend of a 3, then what's really fun for them is that if you invite them to do something that helps them achieve their goals, such as, I've done this before. My Enneagram 3 friends oftentimes are runners. Now, I do more what we call wogging. I'll talk about that later. But there have been years where the best time spent with my Enneagram 3 people was running beside them. They maybe had to slow their pace a little bit, but we had a great time. They could still accomplish their goals. They did their workout time, and we had a great connecting point that helped them with their day, and it blessed mine as well. So those kind of things, if you can think through, what could I do with them that would also help and achieve their goals? It can't always happen, but when you can do it, do it. Okay. Our Enneagram 2, their strength is they're generous. They are really compassionate, tenderhearted, and they are a great connector of people. They love connecting their people with their other people. And the part of that too, though, that it can bleed into really easy, the fear that weakness is kind of similar to the 9s, but the fear that no one has or wants what you have to offer. The fear of being unwanted tends to drive them to get in a endless cycle of helping, and where they're just helping their friends all the time and maybe over helping where they're not wanted even. And so there's a little bit of that struggle of self-sabotaging their relationships. And they're amazing, and who doesn't want to be helped? But sometimes it's coming from the wrong motivation, and that's to be loved and wanted. And that's why it's really great that if you're a friend with the 2, they probably are, they're probably the first to remember your birthday. They are there on your doorstep with a meal when you need it, or they're organizing the help patrol for you. But that's where they're not, as a 2 is not often going to say, I need help. So as their friend, you need to ask them how you can help. Or what's even better is that if you can be intentional and pay attention, just offer to help them out with an everyday need, whether, again, it's a meal, cleaning, babysitting, picking up something from the grocery store. Just think about those practical things, and that would mean so much to the person who is always giving and helping others. So we love you 2s.
Yes, we do.
All right. Last but not least, the Enneagram 1 friend. Oh, their strength is that they are consistent. They are intentional, and they are action oriented. They're getting things done. Maybe not at a fast pace, but that's what's great. It's an intentional pace with excellence. Their fear, though, and oftentimes what might inhibit them in relationships, is they're fearful that they aren't going to be good enough. They're not going to be good enough friend. They're going to be found lacking. They're going to be found, maybe their imperfections and their drive for perfectionism really gets in the way of good, meaningful conversation or even availability with others. And so what I would want to say to the Enneagram 1 friend is that you really are good enough, and you have so much to offer. Let's again think about it. You're like consistent, intentional, and action oriented. Who doesn't want that in their lives?
Right.
And you're equally a helper and a fixer and all the good things. So for those of you who are good friends with the 1 or want to develop a stronger relationship with the 1, thank them for their hard work. Take time to show them appreciation for the great job that they have done, whether it's with words or affirmation. All the little ways really go a long way for an Enneagram 1 who usually works tirelessly to make things better. And they just often want a little bit of not acknowledgement and a pat on the back and, hey, here, great job. So there you go. There's a wealth of information that I think are going to help all of us in our relationships.
Absolutely. That is so helpful. Thank you for running through those for us. I've already got some ideas about things I can do in my friendships.
Yes, totally. It's always good to review these as well. And I'm like, oh yeah, I got to make sure I do this or that.
Right. Well, Amy, just to get to know you on a little bit more personal level, I would love for you to share with us your favorite 5. What are 5 things that you are eating or watching or doing right now that are your favorites?
Okay. Well, I have been on this big kick about sharing all the goodness that I'm learning from this. It's called a trilogy or omnibus, I think they called it, but it's the Shepherd Trilogy by Philip Keller. Philip Keller, this is a really cool story. He's in heaven now, but he, I believe, grew up in South Africa. If nothing else, he lived in South Africa for a time and was a shepherd. He was a sheep herder and he owned sheep. And it's through that experience that he used that understanding of what shepherding really looked like, not only from a shepherd perspective, but even the sheep, that he preached from that standpoint. He became a pastor and gave hundreds of sermons, ended up writing 30 books. But this specific trilogy that wasn't originally set out to be a trilogy talks about the 23rd Psalm, and then it dives into John 10, and then I can't remember the last passage all of a sudden. But it's 3 different books that just, I'll tell you what, I love Jesus so much more from reading this book and have a greater understanding about God's kindness, his tenderness, his care for me, what abundant life looks like when we give ourselves to the leading of the Good Shepherd and we stay by him. There's just so much to unpack. I can't possibly do it in a little nugget of time, but I strongly recommend. It's on Amazon as the trilogy, and it's called the Shepherd Trilogy by Philip Keller. And I think you might find it just an amazing way to enrich your, whether you call it coffee with Jesus, quiet time, or just add it to your reading pile on your nightstand there.
Wow. I have heard of this man. I don't think I knew that it was a trilogy book series, but oh my goodness, That sounds amazing.
So good. I'm loving it. Wholeheartedly recommend it, obviously.
Yes.
Okay. So the other thing I told you about my walking, and it's sort of this joke where I have done races and all of that sort of stuff, but I'm over 40. And so sometimes my jogging is so inconsistent. It's more like walking. And I do walk the dog many times a day, but I like going out for a great walking alone when we have good weather. And so that's been wonderful. And I love that, but it's wintertime. So when I don't get that, I am loving my 10-minute bar videos, and it's awesome. It's just the perfect amount of time that I can still get ready and get my kids out the door on time, but I got a little bit of something in for me. So that's keeping me sane. I love it. Keeps me moving.
Yeah. 10 minutes. Anyone has that.
Right.
Yeah.
We can squeeze that in. Okay. The next thing that I thought you would appreciate is it's Instacart. And I know you love Trader Joe's, and that's coming next, but I am so grateful that I can place this order on a website at all my favorite different places. And then like in 2 to 4 hours, I have groceries at my front door. Like, come on, like, that's amazing. Where was this when I had little kids? That's what I want to know.
Yes. No kidding, Amy. Oh, goodness.
I know, right? But my 4th one comes from Trader Joe's, because Instacart does not do Trader Joe's. So I still have to make that little trek. So worth it though, because they specifically have these. I have a gluten, I'm celiac, and then I also have an issue with dairy. And it's challenging, but they have these cashew shreds. I hate to call them cheese because it's not really cheese, but it makes the best gluten-free, dairy-free cheese sandwich. And I found myself craving those and eating those probably a little bit more than I should, but I am grateful for that Trader Joe's dairy-free cheese.
Yes. I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes. Okay. And last but not least, right now, because it's winter time and we're going to be slowly here coming to spring, but we have a wood burning fireplace, and we put it in our home maybe a year or 2 in. We've been here for about 10 years, and it becomes the central location where there's just, of course, I love the smell. It is a lot of work to do it, but we play games in front of there. We just have extra snuggle time. There's really sweet memories. So I'm in this stage where I'm kind of on that countdown of the kids. They're going to start leaving, and any extra little special family, no electronic time, or even sometimes if electronics in there, just that space, I'm treasuring more and more these days.
That sounds so cozy.
It is. I love it.
Thank you for sharing those with us. Love them.
Great questions, for sure. It's fun to say.
It's so fun to hear what other people are enjoying too.
Absolutely. I agree.
I have loved our time together. It has been so fun in true Enneagram 7 fashion. You brought the excitement, and I appreciate that. But even more than that, your insights on how we can know ourselves better and relate to our friends better is so important. We are, biblically directed to be in a relationship. So anything to make it better, anything to make it more meaningful, I love.
Well, Johanna, you definitely carry that serenity and just the essence of your personality type. It comes through, and it's a gift. It's a gift that you please don't stop sharing that, and that you would create this safe place and cultivate just this conversation around friendship. It is a gift, and I just applaud you and want to continue to encourage you to keep up the great work. It's so needed.
Thank you so much, Amy. I would give you a big hug right now if we weren't separated by a screen.
Same here. Virtual hugs.
Thanks so much for listening. I know Amy warmed your heart with her infectious laugh and her enthusiasm for Jesus and the Enneagram. I'd love to know which of Amy's tips struck a chord with you, or maybe what you made a mental note of to use in your friendships. If you want to learn more, in the show notes, like I promised, I have linked to episode 31 with Julie Short, gives a more in-depth talk on the background and the basics of the Enneagram. And I've also included links to some of Amy's resources. Go and check those out. Don't forget, you can take your conversations to the next level with the Girls Talking Life conversation cards. Set 1 of the digital download even has the question, what is your Enneagram number? That will definitely spark some great conversations. You can find those at girlstalkinglife.com/shop. Friend, don't let the conversation stop when the show is over. Share your story and start your own conversations with the girls in your life. I'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Thanks for tuning in.